see.
I'm leaving you, Leon. It's all right.
Mad. Okay. That's fine, man. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, guys, good evening and welcome to those of you who are joining us online, and welcome to our panelists that we have this evening. We have a interesting topic of discussion and I'm looking forward to getting into it with each and every one that we have here on our panel tonight. Before we start with introductions, let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Father in heaven, Lord, we pause to thank you for your goodness to us and thank you for the privilege we have to meet online from different parts of the country and discuss issues of importance to young people and to the church today. I pray, Lord, that you'd bless us. May your Holy Spirit be with us. Give us wisdom as we share experiences with those who are listening. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, guys, thank you for being with us. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. Our topic this evening, to those who haven't seen or don't know, is an important topic, I believe, to not just young people, but to all people. But the topic is how to take initiative in church, how to take initiative in church. So could we go through some introductions? We'll start with those who are geographically furthest from Nottingham.
Yes. Oh, no, wait. Chisha, I think that's...
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. I was thinking I was still in Leicester. Yeah, so Chisha, my home church is Chelmsford in Essex in the SEC. NEC still has a big place in my heart. I was here from 2010 to 2016, based at Leicester Central. And then I work in marketing for a national newspaper. That's me.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Akil, so I'm from the SEC. I'm kind of between different churches, like a few different places at the moment, like where I was until COVID. But now obviously just at home doing like one-time music stuff, if you guys know about it. Heart Space is a little kind of community, like a little community Bible study thing that we set up. And yeah, that's about it. I also work in marketing too.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Chantal. I am originally from Luton, but I spent around 6 years in Coventry where I was a student. And now I'm back in Luton, but in between I've kind of been abroad to different places. So yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you for being here.
I think I'm next. Hi everyone, my name is Naomi Manganye and I'm from Leeds. I currently work for the NHS in accounting and finance.
Okay. My name's Leon Fuller. Currently live in Warsaw. Go to Handsworth Seventh-day Adventist Church from the NEC. I am a social worker. Used to be a youth leader. Now elder. So yeah, just here.
And my name is Dionne Rey. I go to Camp Hill Seventh-day Adventist Church in Birmingham. I am a wife. I am married to an elder, and I have 2 children. And I am a primary school teacher.
Okay, thank you guys. Thanks for being with us. Thank you for introducing yourselves. Now, the topic that we're discussing tonight, how to take initiative in ministry. I think it's an important one for youth to grapple with and understand. I think sometimes young people can have an experience which leads to a perception, and sometimes it may be based on reality, that the church may seem against them, or they find it difficult to get things done, and you know, and so the question of how do we take initiative in a healthy and a practical and a way where, you know, we can get things done, or young people can take practical advice. So I wanted to just go around in no particular order, and I wanted each one of you to share maybe a positive experience of where you have tried and to do something and have managed to get it through, whether it's a local church board or maybe it was a ministry outside of church. I'm not always thinking of everything in church, it could be in or out, but how you started an initiative and were able to work through it, whether you were leading on it or assisting on it. Just share something from your own experience. So let's start with, who should we start with? Leon, I'll start with you.
Hey, okay, so oh wow, I've had a few experiences, to be honest, but I would just probably focus on one at the moment. I think it was at a time where I wanted to kind of get the youth together, and to create a kind of a safe space for the youth to be open and honest. So we came up with the idea of like having like a group session where you talk on different topics, you know, juicy topics, and we kind of presented it to the church. And I feel like at the beginning they were a bit curious as to what was going on, but after a few people stepped in and realized that actually it's a good thing, we call that real talk. And it kind of was, you know, it just took off. We had youth coming from all over the place, and you know, the board were in full support of it, and you could see that the youth were learning and we were growing as well spiritually. So that's one thing that I definitely kind of managed to kind of wiggle through, and it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of stayed. It's about.
That's good. Did you come up with the name Real Talk, or did you copy it from some?
No. We came up with.
The reason why I'm asking you is because I see Real Talks popping up all over the globe now, and I was telling you the other day you should have trademarked that thing, man.
You should have, man. Should have. Too late. Well, yeah, we just came up with it because we wanted people to be kind of honest and open. I feel like sometimes in church, you're not really that honest, and people don't learn from people's past mistakes. So for, you know, the youth definitely needed something like that. But yeah.
All right, appreciate that. Anyone else want to pick it up now?
Yeah, I'll go. And to be honest, Chantal's smiling because it is the, well, yeah, I'm going to talk about ASC, which is obviously something that's happening here within the NEC. I remember, I think it was after uni, after peace, obviously I had been able to start up a campus ministry in De Montfort. Chantal had started a campus ministry in Coventry. Pastor had been intrigued about how, obviously, the fact that we had started, they had gone quite well. We had, and again, ministry is not always about numbers, but we had a good numbers attending. Adventist, not Adventist on campus. Coventry's was also doing well. And I think then that conversation started with Pastor Ramdin. And long story short, we were able to start, whilst first we did a training, this was before ASC existed. Then after that, it was like, okay, we actually think we should make this something that the NEC is doing. And obviously Pastor was with full support of the idea, the vision. And then, yeah, it started to become a reality, logo, ideas, and it went from then something which was just a loose network of 6 or 7 societies to kind of established, recognized within our conference, and nearly 20 societies. And that was a lot of hard work with Chantal, a lot of long days, a lot of, yeah, just a lot of work had gone in. But again, because of the support of Pastor Ramdi and the conference and our willingness to be committed to the initiative, it was something that I think we're probably still to this day, thankfully, quite proud of. So, yeah. Chantal, anything to add?
I guess I would add that initially when we started in Coventry, it was a very, like, I'd heard of a couple of societies that started in other places, but it was still a very new idea. So initially when we started in Coventry, it was 2013 and the training hadn't happened yet. It wasn't recognized by the conference. So it was literally a kind of ministry outside of the church that we then kind of had to get connected with church. So there were a lot of kind of different dynamics that happened in that process before it became recognized by the NEC, which I don't know if you want me to go into any of that now or if it will come later on.
I think some of that will come later. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think mine's too early to talk about. It's so brand new. But so myself and my husband Marcus, we've started a little on the side kind of ministry where we were giving a couple counselling. Now, I am not a professional counsellor, and I made that very clear to her. But she said to me, look, just from the life that you live, the way how you manage yourself, you are living your purpose, and I can see it through your life, basically. And she was like, and that qualifies you to support me and my partner to, you know, come together because we want to make steps towards becoming engaged. So I kind of picked out just some of the stuff that we had from when my husband and I did our pre-marriage counselling that we had kept, and, you know, kind of looked through there and thought, well, what could we take and how could we pull this together and pull that together? And it was something that we found was really beneficial, not just for the couple that we were supporting and working with, but also for my husband and I. And it was a time where, you know, just we saw the need for just speaking with others and just discussing and having that free conversation. And so as we continued with this, my husband Marcus, he said, you know what, this is something that we should probably think about taking further and, like, you know, for a wider scope. So I phoned in a few of the besties and said, what do you think about this? And, you know, they were really on board with it, really supportive of it. They thought it was a great idea. And so now we have started, we had our first session last week, Wednesday. We have the next session coming up this week, Wednesday, and that's Can We Just Talk? So it is very new, it's very fresh, it's very just real. It's just couples, it's not for couples, it's alone, it's couples and others, because you will experience these kind of things at some point in your life. So yeah, get involved. We can't promise that it's going to be every Wednesday, because when you do watch back, you'll see that the different job roles, etc., of people who are in there, we can't commit to every Wednesday. However, that seems to be the day we're trying to push, but we will give you as much notice as possible so that you can stay tuned and keep watching. We didn't know that it would take off so quickly. We're actually blown away by how blessed people have been by the whole thing, and clearly there was a need for it. And so we just continue to pray about it, and we pray that this ministry just takes off, and many are blessed just as much as we have been in actually doing it.
I saw that on Instagram. There's now I know who's behind it. Okay,
yeah,
good.
Yeah. Follow us, subscribe, you know.
You got it in.
I got it in.
plug.
I'll go next. There's only two people left. So mine, I think my taking initiative kind of comes under a number of umbrellas. I think my initiative is pretty much just kind of being willing in whatever is already happening and just taking like a role in that, and then like adding whatever skills and passion I have into that ministry. So similar to Chisha and Chantal, I was also involved with ASC, particularly in Leeds. And yeah, I think one thing that I think, because it was already existing, however, it kind of winded down a little bit. So a group of us came together and decided to bring it back. And some of the initiatives that we took to really develop it was to add elements of care groups, which we didn't have before, which brought a lot of young people together. And it's not about the numbers, but the numbers really did grow, and we really saw like a family coming together and wanting to be with each other every Friday when they could be doing something else. And it was just like really, really great. And we were also able to witness, so it wasn't just Adventists who were there. We had quite a number of non-Adventists who came, who got really involved, and some of them even ended up taking roles and leadership within the society and the care group itself, which was really nice to see. And they then started coming to church on the Sabbath, which was really beautiful to see as well. And another element that we added was discipleship, which was under a program called FAST, which started off in America, I think. So yeah, that's essentially like getting young people to learn about morning devotions and actually speaking with one another about morning devotions and asking those questions like, how is your spiritual life going? Which like people don't really ask you these days. So it was quite nice to get people doing morning devotions and sharing it with each other, and other things like that. And then what else did I start? I don't know, other things being a part. So that was quite good in the sense that ASC had kind of like already been established. So we didn't really have a problem with the board, to be quite honest. They're in full support. Pastors, well, at least our local pastors, very supportive of it. We also started yearly retreats, where we went out to different parts of the north, like the Yorkshire Dales. And that is still going on as well. And it's just really beautiful to see them coming together as well. So yeah, it's called a recharge retreat, which they have every year, which is really, really nice. So yeah.
All right, thank you. Akil?
For me, positive experience. One Sound is probably the biggest thing today. So I guess it's like 2011. We kind of just looked at the music situation in church, and there was like a few of us, and we're just like, you know what, there doesn't seem to be that much Adventist music that's been pushed out there. There's so much talent, but it's not being harnessed. So we thought, okay, let's try and sort of change what's happening. So we actually started off with an idea to like create a CD. So we actually have like a bunch of songs written that still to this day have not been recorded, but but it turned out that we just thought, you know what, to get ourselves out there, to get a bit of a brand for ourselves, let's just start a YouTube channel. And it's just grown from there. Like it started off in 2013, then we started doing events. We started managing, like trying to manage artists, like, and I guess where we're at right now is that we're kind of trying to work with some artists on some label services, trying to get them from having like a musical idea to a finished project to getting it out there. And I guess really the positive experience is that it's been young people who've just started this up. So the core team right now is myself, my girlfriend Antonia, and one of my good friends Tochi, and we've kind of just been there from the beginning, just driving it. And I think it's just been really positive because we've had so many different young people kind of come through and like just share their musical talents. I think that's been the really positive thing about it, like from north, from south, from everywhere. And thanks to Adam for helping to invest in our project as well. That was really important to us as well. Yeah, I think it's been, I think so far, One Sound Music has been a really positive experience. I mean, there's been ups and downs, but the kind of drive of young people to kind of get music out there and the talent that we've seen, it's just been worth it.
And you're probably one of the biggest YouTube channels in the UK, at least Adventist ones now in the UK, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we've done pretty well considering like I know we've had a bunch of different people, and I think one of the things we really tried to do was make sure this was not like an elitist thing. So just going to be anybody, like if you're good, we'll just get you on, and just thanking God that it's just grown. Like even the live stuff we've done, like the Isolation Fest we did last month.
That was amazing.
That was
good.
Like, yeah, I mean, and shout out to everyone that's just been part of it. But like, I think at one point we had like it was funny because I was like on a live stream like the day before of like this amazing American band that's like had like 150 people or something. And then we had like 250 people the next day. And I was like, this is just, we just had no clue it would get that big, but God has just like worked even in this time, like how bad it's been. It was just great that we could get people just for a few hours just to like stop thinking about everything that's going on and just like kind of worship, just really enjoy Sabbath, I guess.
Now, I know you're a musician, and Tochi and I think Antonia both have, musical talent as well. Tochi and musical talent as well. But did you have a background in production or YouTube or media ministry before you started that? Is that something you learned on the feet, on the go?
It's funny you said that. No, like now I think about it, no, I had no clue about YouTube, none of that stuff. Like, I mean, I watched loads of YouTube. Like Leon will tell you at uni, like, I used to be on YouTube all the time. I was on YouTube, but I didn't know about like producing videos, about how to mix, how to master, like how to set up a video shoot, any of that stuff. And God has like just connected us with different people at different points that are just like we started off, like we were doing different things, like we didn't have that much equipment. Then we got some, like, this has all been pretty much majority of it has been our own funding. So it's like, okay, we bought a little microphone. Okay, we kind of learned how to use that. And then one of my really good friends, Chloe, came in. She was doing our videography for like 4 years, amazing talent. And then just like our video just started getting better and better. And I think it was just like a lot of learning on the job, but because the drive was there, it's just like even now it's like learning how to do social media, learning how to like design, like all the designs and stuff that come out. Like it's mainly just I'm doing it on Canva or whatever, but it's just like, whatever needs to get done, I'm just going to learn how to do it to the best of my ability and just get on with it. Like that's been the way it's been for me anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a key thing about ministry. I think when you have a passion for something, whether you have the skills at the time or the experience and talent at the time, even if you don't have that, if you've got the passion and the motivation, you're able to drive through obstacles that come ahead. And praise the Lord for Canva, amen.
Amen. I was about to say something to plug it.
No, I'm telling you, Canva, lifesaver, man, absolute life. But like, I think as well, the other side of it is that we've also seen fit to invest money. So like right now, like Antonia's studying like live music productions. Like she's taking the music thing seriously. Like I studied, half my degree was music. Like I did a music business course at some point, like in 2014. Like we've all at some point, like all of us kind of put some like money, or just we thought, let's just go in, let's invest in our talent, like let's learn how to do this properly, so that when it comes out, it's gonna be good quality. Because one of the things I find sometimes with like, I don't want to say with just, it's not Adventism, it's just ministries in general, we kind of don't take it seriously enough. So like it's okay, like it's cool, but it's not like on levels with what's going on. But I think there's a quote where Sister White talks about like, if you're gonna do it, like I'm paraphrasing really badly here, I ain't Randy Ski, I don't know the he talks about like, we should be using all the avenues possible, like print media, whatever, to get the message out. And so if we're gonna do that, we've got to do that to the best of our ability. Like if we can, you obviously make do with what you can, but if you have money that you can invest, or you have time that you can invest, like go all in, man. That's what I would say.
Amen. Appreciate you sharing. And I know what you guys have shared here isn't the only experiences that you've had of positive experiences with the church, but we don't have time to share all of them, because now we want to share some of the
Quick question. What about you, Pastor Adam?
Ooh.
What about me?
Lineage.
Oh yeah, I would say. I mean, okay, the story of lineage goes to the steps of the British Museum in London. I was there visiting with Chad Cruiser and his wife, who had been camp meeting speakers in 2016. They were staying an extra few days, so I said, "Oh, we'll take you down to London. We'll go to the British Museum." Clive Coutet was down in London. He said, "Oh, let's go. We'll go around British Museum together." we met with someone else, they showed us around. At the end of the tour, Clive come to me and he's like, hey, Adam, do you want to film some videos in the British Museum, because we're allowed to use a tripod here, and do some history of the Bible and history of the church, and maybe do John Wesley's house in London? I said, sure, let's do that. That was the initial question. That was the initial answer. And then we kind of bounced the ideas off each other, and it's like, oh, well, let's go film in Oxford. Let's film in Lutterworth. Let's go to Cambridge. Oh, let's go to Scotland as well. And it just kind of, the idea just grew, and it was like, oh, well, next year's the year of the Reformation. And somewhere along the way, it became a weekly series. It became a chronological series, and we just traveled around England and Europe and filmed. It was just an idea it was Clive's idea. He approached me. I said, yeah. Clive had always worked for the NEC for the past 3 years before that, filming sermons at camp meeting and shooting devotional videos for me. And when we did the first lineage, I thought, he filmed me, and I just thought it was just going to be me in front of the camera talking to the camera. And when he showed me the first episode 1 draft, I was like, oh. Yeah, I think he was being underused filming sermons at camp meeting, you know?
Yeah.
This is the thing with Clive. He was very humble, and he was happy to film the sermons at camp meeting and you know, do that. But he had a lot more talent that that was eventually revealed, and it's grown and gone from there. That's kind of how it started, and the Northanger Conference was supported the initial start of it and gave me the time to go and film. So that was a positive thing as well. And we kind of, that was the initial start.
Yeah, man.
Well done, Naomi.
Series is great, man. That series is great.
Couldn't let that slide.
We had that showing in church weekly, man.
Yeah, lovely.
And it's the quality, man. It's real.
Real good quality.
Yeah. Just back to your point, Akil, about just producing quality and us not just producing box standards. So yeah.
And because it started off so well, most people would never have thought that was just the idea. You'd think it was something that was established, planned like over a year in advance. This is what we're going to do. We're going to launch. We're going to look like this. But
listen, the greatest ideas come like that.
Like, people just have conversations, ideas, and they grow, and that's the. And I think organic ideas, that there's a beauty to it where something just starts organically. It's not like a strategic committee that sits together and outlines 10 steps they're going to do, and outline another subcommittee that will do this, and a subcommittee of the subcommittee that talks about it for 6 months, and then finally you get a draft plan. These organic, sometimes there's beauty in just something coming from passion and drive and humility and ignorance and pulling it together,
And I think often when you try to plan things too much, you might end up not actually doing it, because, like, as you said, Pastor, I've seen this in church where things will be planned and it's like you're the health ministry leader, for example, and you're like, at this point, we're going to do a health expo, then we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. But all the kind of resistance that you tend to experience, by the time it comes to executing it, you're just like,
May as well do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
So the title's just do it, right? And I feel like that is a key thing. Like, you literally just have to do it. Like, even if it's a small thing, like, it tends to build up and grow from that. Then if you just say, oh, it's not this big thing, so I'm just going to leave it alone.
Yeah.
I think, that's a key point.
There's a book called The Lean Startup. Like, it's about like startups and entrepreneurship. But one thing it talks about is like a minimum viable product. So like, not necessarily needing to have the perfect product straight away, but just kind of like breaking things down to like, what is the minimum thing I can get out there, and then just do that. Because sometimes I think we have these, I'm not saying we shouldn't have grand ideas in ministry, we honestly, we really should, and we don't have enough of them. But sometimes if you do have a really big idea, just start it small with something you can do now. And like, you can't tell where God will take you. You can't tell how it will snowball. But like you said, if you start planning things to death and thinking, oh, I can't do this, and then it's like this big thing to get past the border. Sometimes if you just start really small, you do something small, does well, then you just keep building and building and building. Like, I've seen there's a lot of ministries that have started like that. I believe that GYC started like that. They weren't really supposed to be that big. And then it just snowballed to like however many people it is now. But if they like try to plan like maybe a 7,000 person conference, it might not have happened the way it did.
I think a key thing with starting is when you start, you don't want to you don't start small with the goal of trying to be big. Like, if that's your goal, then you're off from the start. Your goal is, let me be faithful with, you know, what God's calling me, and I'm faithful to my passion, and see what, you know, just do that. But I wanted to kind of pivot a little bit here, guys, and ask you, maybe put a couple of questions together. We've talked about some positive experience. What maybe have there been any, I don't want to use the word negative, but yeah, the opposite of positive is negative. Or maybe I could use the word setbacks. Any setbacks you've had in ministry, and what was maybe some of the reasons for them, and, you know, whether that was in a church context or out of church context. Maybe it was red tape in the church. How did you deal with that? Maybe you had an initiative you wanted to start, it got slammed down, and it got slammed down. That was it, you know. And you just had to. I don't know. I'm just throwing options out there. We haven't briefed or talked about this, but I just wanted to ask. Maybe not everyone has to answer this question, but if there's an experience you've gone through, I know some of you come from larger churches where maybe the red tape is thicker than other churches. Yeah, challenges you've had, and anyone want to share a challenge you've had, maybe a failed dream or anything like that, and how you processed it and worked through it.
Failed.
Real talk, guys. Real talk.
He goes a failed dream.
Yeah.
Let's go there.
Mine might be a bit slightly different, but a few, like, not last year, before, I was asked to be an area, and in the South there's a bit more emphasis put on the area, so I was asked to be an area youth president, and sorry, my screensaver's gone. And I was told, right, we really want you to do, you know, these great things for the youth of the area, etc., blah, 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 but there's no budget. So I'm like, so how do you, what? So, okay, cool, fine. So meet with the team, this is a situation, there's this expectation, and we recognize that, you know, we've been given these roles. So what can we do? Let's do our best. So there's a quote Eleanor talks about. In fact, I actually got it down, and it says, "Prayer and effort and prayer will be the business of your life. You must pray as though the efficiency and praise were all due to God, and labor as though duty were all your own." So we just said, right, let's pray as much as we can, ask God to help us. We want to help the youth of this area spiritually this year for the time that we have. So let's do our best. So every meeting we're praying in between, but then we're trying to do what we can. We're saying, God, we haven't got money, but we need to do events, we need to do programs, we need to reach our young people. Long story short, by the end of the year, praise God, we'd had been able to do numerous events, some outreach, some internal, end of the banquet, of which, again, we'd had no budget. So come the beginning of this year, and this is what I would say, sometimes when you've got those setbacks, don't look at them and go, right, okay, so the end of the world, or the church is blocking me, I throw my toys out the pram, like, it's all over, I'm not gonna, like, see what you can still do. Ask God for help, and then do what you can. And so long story short, in the end, we've started this year, and I'm like, okay, they asked me to continue, and I said, last year, you haven't given me a budget, and you want me to go through all of that again. Long story short, because of what they'd seen happen, and essentially because of the effort for the previous year, they could not give me a budget. And this year we ended up, out of all the other departments within the area, getting the most amount of money, or alongside Pathfinders. And so obviously we haven't really been able to use it because of COVID and obviously cuts, etc. But the point is that even though it was initially a setback, we still did what we could, ask God for help, and God came through. And now this year, we ended up getting, you know, in inverted commas, the most amount of money to be able to use, even though we haven't been able to use it. But so that was a setback, which ended up kind of turning around, and yeah, God just came through constantly throughout the year, and yeah, that's just an experience I could share as well.
I have one. I would say, so prior to the initial start of our society in Coventry, I'd gotten the idea from a Students' Day, NEC Students' Day the year before. But when I first had the idea, it sounded so big, and I didn't think I would be the person to kind of initiate it. So I'd gone back to my local church, and there was a young man that had gone to Peace already. So he was on fire doing Bible studies, and he took a lot of initiative with youth projects in the church. So he was like a student in a nearby university. So I tried to get him to kind of help us do something. I'm like, hey, like, can you come to our university and help us set the society up? With the logistics, like, it wouldn't have worked because he needed to be a student at our university for it to work. So I kind of just felt like, well, that's it. We're not going to be able to do it then. So I kind of left the idea alone. But I've seen that sometimes when we're kind of, I guess, not confident or not enough or don't have enough faith, God kind of still works with that. And he allows different circumstances to play out for you to be equipped to do what he wants you to do. So the kind of months following that, I was then inspired to go to Peace, and that's how I ended up going to Peace. And then in going to Peace and getting training, I realized, oh, okay, I haven't really got an excuse now, or like I need to use this knowledge. And so everything came together that I could go back to my studies and start the society. So initially that was kind of a setback where, even though, at least over 12 months before, I thought, Coventry would do well with the society, it didn't happen until a year later. But in the process, God kind of built me up and gave me what maybe I felt I needed, which maybe he could have worked without it. I know now looking back, but he worked to the fact that I didn't feel equipped, and he equipped me, and then, enabled me to kind of go forward with that. So sometimes the timing, I think maybe timing is necessary as well, that maybe it wasn't the right time before. Maybe if wrong timing, you can start something and then it's not as successful as it could be. But yeah, that's kind of one factor that played a role in my experience.
Are we talking about when we have red tape towards the initiatives? Are we talking about red tape towards us as a young person trying to just hustle through the 21st century in a church that has been going long before that? What are we referring to?
I think it could be both of them, or either of them. I think both of them, people have challenged with either of those. So,
Okay, so from my point of view, okay, so we gonna be politically correct now. Okay, so we've had a few, but ours is normally around music. It's normally music and I'm quite passionate about music. I feel that God has given me that ministry of music, and I take that ministry quite seriously, to the point where I feel I get hurt when people want to cut praise and worship, because it's ministry, but that's for another day. So when we have our kind of my red tapes has always been from that point of view. So for example, we're trying to establish a musical a praise and worship set or something, and there will be somebody who has some problem with it for some reason. It will either be the choice of songs, they don't know it, they don't want to learn it, you're not using this instrument, you're not having that one, and I'm at the age where I'm old enough to relate with the older folk, but then young enough to understand the frustration. Okay, so when I think for me, it's more so like I try to look for the positives. So as much as this is the situation and this is what we're in, we still have to be like, well, look, this is where the older folk are coming from, and this is why they feel this way, and this is why they may have said it this way, and it might not be the best way, but they've said it. And inside, as much as I'm rooting and, because, for the peace, and I am raging inside, because I'm thinking, why are you hindering us? We've got these ideas, we've got these, we want to do this and we want to do this, and you're hindering us, and, but it's trying to find that middle ground. So I think it's been it could be, again, because I've got a generation above me that have that are no longer in church. We've lost quite a few of our young people, and it's the generation that's just come above me. So there's nobody to really kind of, there's I shouldn't say nobody, there's a few odd ones that you can kind of look up to and go to for support, etc. But there's still a gap. And so you try to, as I said, you try to find that middle area. You try to find, well, okay, let's try and do this to keep that person happy. But then actually, no, let's try and do this, and it's just constantly, it feels like a battle. It's constantly up and down, up and down. And then you get the whole, well, because there's nobody doing it for us, I'm just gonna have to get up and I'm just gonna have to do it. So whether it's leading a choir, whether it's leading in praise and worship, whether it's something, and then you get the folk complaining that you're the one that's always up there. So then you get, well, why is she always up there? Who does she think she is? You got these people who are like, give other people a chance. And then I say, okay, well, I'm only doing it because nobody else is doing it, So you'll sit there, and then, do you want to have a go? Do you want to lead it? No, I'm not leading. No, not me. And those are the same people who are complaining. So I think, especially from, I'm telling everybody my age, but I've gone past that 30 mark now, for a couple of years, and I've been battling with this since probably the age of about 16. Being a part of a youth choir, and you'd say my uncle David, he's the one who was leading the choir at the time, and it would be, oh well, anybody, would you like to sing the lead part? And just pure silence. Nobody would say anything. Okay, so then he'd be like, okay, well, the song needs to be sung, we've got a date coming up. Did anybody? No. Okay. And then I was the one that he'd be like, all right, well, I know that Dionne will do it. So Dionne, can you do it? And obviously, because I believe so passionately about it, and I feel that God has given me this ministry that I can't just sit on, I'm going to sing it. Whether people think I'm fantastic or they don't, I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to make my joyful noise to the Lord, regardless. So I do that. But then even sometimes at that time, by my own peers who were in there, they were giving me the red tape. And they were making me feel like, uncomfortable, and, who do you think you are? And why is it always you? And so I've constantly grown up with this feeling of, oh, I'm never going to be good enough to do anything. I'm not going to, and even I've been singing for years. Akil, you will never catch me singing nowhere live. Like I get when Adam phoned me to come and sing on the first time that you did the NEC, he will tell you, I was just like, are you joking? Sing, everybody to hear me. But I think that's because I've been so, what's the word? I've been so, I don't know what the word is. Like, I've been made to feel that is how I'm supposed to be. So I just stay in my lane. I just humble myself, and when God tells me the time is right, I'll do what I have to do. So I think from this point of view, to anybody else that is having those experiences, my encouragement to you would be, just don't give up. Even though people may be saying negative things to you, and even though people may be discouraging you, God has got a purpose for you. He's got a purpose, and you may not see that purpose right now, but it may be however many years, 5-10 years later down the line, he'll open that door for you, and he will do far above you can even ask or think. So just continue to plow on, press on, and don't be discouraged. I know it's hard. I've been there. I can relate. But yeah, stay strong. Don't be discouraged.
Could I kind of pivot maybe a little bit? Thank you. Appreciate that, Dionne, and for sharing from your experience in your local church. I think I asked the question before, that how many of you have sat on the church board, and I got an affirmative answer from all of you. So in some form or fashion, whether it was a youth leader or another department, you experienced what being in the inner circle and the Oval Office is like. So how would you maybe share how to best navigate the church board in a local church to another young person maybe who's younger than you, who's coming up, and they haven't been through that. Any tips anyone wants to share on best ways to navigate the board, and maybe how to get things through, or anything area? Leon, you're about to.
Yeah.
What's that? Sorry.
Were you about to answer? I thought.
Yeah. Man. The board is a special place.
Very
It's a special place. What advice would I give? I think that it's really important that you remain Christ-like. I think that's key. Some people may lose themselves a bit potentially, but I'd say remain respectful. Remember what you're there to do. You're not there for anything else apart from service and ministry to God. It's difficult when you're a young person and the majority of the board are mature. Sometimes the views are different, the style maybe of worship different. It's all different. I say keep composure, be Christ-like, always be respectful, because you don't want anybody to say, I knew it, like just getting angry. It's typical youth, typical young person, got no respect. You think you know it all, and before you know it, believe it, you'll get pushed out and we'll have no response, we'll have no roles. So just do your part and be respectful and kind and follow Christ in every way, and you'll get through it. The board's a special place.
I think, Leon, as well, I think it's important to say that, not everybody's against you. There are people on that board that are rooting for you.
Yeah.
And my experience is that it's always the minority that have the biggest mouth. It's always the minority you want to talk the loudest, discourage the most, when really there are people that are sitting there that may not be saying anything loud, but really they've got you 100%. So if you're not necessarily sitting on the board, and it's an initiative that you want to push for, just speak. Look around in your next AY. Okay, that's what you do. You look around, you see which board members actually they're supporting you. Next time you have your AY session, and those are the ones that if they're sitting on the board, go and speak to them, and those are the ones that are there to support and to root for you. Don't get me wrong, it's not just those people who come to AY. Let me make that clear. But there are people, what I'm trying to say is there are others around as well. Don't think that you have to do everything in your own might, and that because it's my initiative, I've got to do it all by myself and nobody's going to support me and no one's going to help me. They will help you. And as I said, they might be the quieter one. They might be the ones that are just sitting at the back in the corner. But if you were to come to them and say, look, this is what I want to do, they will do whatever they can to make sure that works for you.
Just to add to that as well, I think I'd say, don't be afraid to go speak to them personally and share your ideas. So then this way you're not dropping like a bombshell when you actually attend the meetings. It's kind of like you've had a chance to be able to explain yourself, and actually thoroughly go through what it is that you're trying to do and how it would be beneficial and what the consensus has been from the feedback that you've had. So I think that also helps when it comes to it, so that one, people are already informed and it's people not trying to figure out what you're trying to say. And then when you bring it up, it's not a bombshell. And I think that will also go to the point of, if it's the minority who are always overpowering the board, is there a way then you can learn how to turn that into like emotion, so then you can get votes? So even if the minority are doing a lot, those who are in support of you, or those who have heard what you've said and don't think it's a bad idea, get to vote and you get the majority, then you can always go ahead and do what it is that you're trying to do. And I think the other thing that the board likes, or just people in general, that I think has worked really well in Leeds, is actually going back and feeding back what you've done, or what has been the benefit or the result of the things that you've done. So when we first started off with Leeds ASC, we would always ask if we can have the, what's that department? The personal ministry slot, just to kind of show like what we've done. We just put pictures to say, oh, we had a care group, we had food, we did this, we did that, and this is what it looks like. And then this way, even if the board isn't really feeling any type of way, like the response you get from those supportive parents or whatever it is kind of like makes whatever you're doing a lot better, which then lightens the heart of those on the board. So when you go back and, you know, you ask for more, kind of like going back to what Chisha says, because they've done stuff when it came to the year after and it was like, we kind of need a bit more money. It's like they're willing to give it to you because they've seen that you're actually doing things. So I think that helps.
Yeah. Could I just also add to what everyone said, and especially what Leon was saying? I mean, when Ellen White talks about Jesus, she talks about the fact that Jesus had great tact and ultimately wisdom when it came to dealing with situations. And I think often, especially like we could be maybe just joining the board and we're like, right, I've got all these great ideas, the church has to change and I'm going to present them. When actually that first board, just maybe it is you just sit quietly, you listen, you show that you're not coming to try and change the world. Ultimately, you've got your ideas, you know what you want to get across in due course, but pick and choose your times to speak. Because I think sometimes, like Leon alluded to, like we come in, it's like, right, everyone needs to now listen to me in a way that's kind of in the back of our minds. And then like the adults, especially because they've been in the church longer, I've got more experience, they're immediately turned off. And then you'll now start fighting a losing battle to a degree. So just pick and choose your time to speak. You're going to have to a degree, work with the fact that, yes, there's cultural ideas that the younger person shouldn't speak up too much, shouldn't be so like slowly but surely. And I think something I realize is with that, it's got to a point now where I'm able to speak up more often and points are heard, things happen, but it's taking a bit of time. Like sometimes there's going to be time. I had got the quote as well where she talks about that, but I've already used one quote, so second quote again. So, but yeah, pick and choose your times. I mean, I think it's Matthew 10:16 where Jesus is telling the disciples to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. So just pick and choose your time. Be wise when you speak. Work with the system essentially.
Just to add as well, I think another point is it's not just about how you are in the board meeting itself, but how are you as a person in kind of serving the church? Because I find that in my experience, when you're a young person that supports the church services, you're there for Sabbath school, you know, volunteer for they ask you to do something, they're able to do. You're there for the prayer meetings, you're there for other department programs. When it then comes to share a plan that's well thought out and has kind of the mission of the church in mind, you've thought about the finances, you thought about just all the different logistics. When you present that plan, there's very little much for them to say, oh no, that's a problem. It might be that they say, oh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? But I found that it's not really like you can't do this, because they see that you are interested in the good of the work of the church. And so I think that's important as young people. Sometimes, you know, we can just be focused on what we're trying to do without looking at the wider church. And I think that's an important factor as well.
That's so true. That is so true, because even in my experiences as well, that if I was asked to go and sing anywhere, or like at any other church, that would be my first thing that I'd have to say to people. Even now, I'll say, I need to check and see if I'm doing anything in Sabbath school. I need to see if whether, because I used to do Young Hope choir as well, so I was like, I had to make sure that Young Hope wasn't singing, and you have to check, because my first priority is to my church. So as much as I like to get out there and to do everything, my membership is at Camp Hill, so therefore my heart is at Camp Hill, and so I don't want to see that. I know that people say, well, you know, other people will do it, and you know, but I still think that if we've committed to something, we need to show our commitment, because that, just like you said, that it shows your commitment. It shows that you can be faithful with little. So, you know.
Huge point. Huge point.
I guess I was going to say, like, I guess I come from a slightly different standpoint in that I've been in different situations in terms of when we talk about setbacks and how to navigate boards where it's not even, how do I put this in, as you would say, in PC way. I think
real talk, bro.
Real talk.
For me, I think the number one thing I would say, and this is what I have learned from my past experience that I didn't do. I didn't pray enough when I was dealing with boards and leaderships and members and all those kind of things. Like, that's the number one base point, because more than anything, your heart has to be right. So you could be right, but wrong. Like, you could be right in terms of what you're saying, and everything you said is correct. But you as a person, like your heart's not, it's not right. Like, you're coming in, like, you're coming in from the wrong angle. You're angry, and it's like, you can be angry 100%, like there's righteous anger, but if you're just angry because of personal slights, whatever, that's not necessary. Like, you've got to come at a point of your heart is right. The second thing I would say is that I personally, the most success I've had is navigating around or without the red tape. Like, One Sound Music, in my opinion, and the things I've done have prospered because I haven't had to deal with red tape and all these different things. Like, if you can do it for your church and they're willing, 100%. But I'm just going to be real. Sometimes they just won't like it, and that's fine. Just do it yourself. Like, God is not going to be able to come to you. Is not going to come to you and be like, oh, your church didn't allow you. Oh, well, then that's fine then. If God has put something in your heart to do, and you know he has, and there's red tape in the way, work if you can with the people that you can work with. Like, because one thing that we have to get around is this idea that everybody in the church is there for the right reasons, and everyone is committed to the work of God. Like, the truth is, many of us aren't. Like, we're not there for that. We're there for the social club, or we're there for, like, oh, you know, it's a thing to do on Saturdays. We're there for people that are there for position, they're there for power. There's all these different things that people come to church for. But that's why I said about your praying and your heart being right. Because if you're there for ministry, if that's the reason you're there and you're single focused around that, God will show you the people who can be worked with and the people who you can work with, and you will get your ministry done. Like, it will happen. But if you, I speak as someone who, like, has been I was committed to my church, like, completely for, like, years and years and years, and there still ended up being some big issue, whatever. Like, things might just happen. It just gets like that sometimes, but that's no excuse for your heart not being right, and that's no excuse for you not doing the work. Like, it doesn't matter what people did to you, whatever. And I say that as, like, who's had issues with this and that and the other, like, leadership conference, whatever. If you've got something on your heart that God has told you, you should be doing this, you've got to get it done. And there will be people with right hearts that will work with you. Like, I'm a witness to that. Like, there's, like, even though I've had issues with this or that, this leadership or this conference, whatever, there's still be people in the conference that I can work with. There's still people in leadership that I can work with. Like, God has people everywhere. So he will show you those people, identify them and work with them. But don't ever use the excuses of setbacks or people who are not willing to do work as an excuse for you not to do, because there's so many ministries out there. Like, everybody here on this call is involved in ministry, but there's so many ministries out there. Like, sometimes we have this idea as young people that there's nothing happening. There might not be anything specifically happening in your particular church, but there's always a way for you to start up a little Bible study or to start up a little small group. All you need is a house. If you live somewhere, then you can start something. There's always a ministry to start. So I would say the number one thing is like firstly pray, but secondly, ask God to show you who can I work with, who can I work with, and then from there, just start building your ministry small, like just building and building, but never use like the red tape and stuff as an excuse, because you can always just get around it by just doing it. No one can actually physically stop you, man.
Appreciate you sharing, because like you said, there's always red tape, or there's always so and so on the board is all related to each other, and that's why it didn't work, or it's all one big clique there, and I'm not from that group, and or they're from this country and I'm not from that country, and we can always find an excuse as to why our proposal may not have had success first time. But I appreciate the answers that have been given, for just to kind of like read the board first, or like you don't walk in there and be like, boom, this is what I'm going to do. And, you got to use some wisdom and so on as you go along. I wanted to ask another question, and that kind of bounces off something you said, Akil. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to answer, but How do you start something in ministry? And let's just say it's outside of the four walls of the church, in its traditional sense, and not be seen as, you know, an offshoot or something like that. Like, what advice would you give to someone who's got a passion to do something? It may not be a project that fits, like, you know, inside a typical department in church or whatever, but they want to do something, it's ministry. It may not fit within the departmental structure, but they don't want to be seen as an offshoot. Like, how do you kind of, you know, keep those bridges alive?
I think maybe that goes back to the point about me, like when I said about like identifying who you can work with. That may be one thing, because sometimes it might be just that people just, they don't know you and they think, oh, what is this thing? Like me, I'm not necessarily so naturally, I wouldn't just think, oh, because it's not within church, that means it's bad, I'll just judge on its merits. But other people ain't necessarily like that. So I would say, sometimes it can even be even the way you brand things, or if you can get a certain person that you know who like is known as kosher to be on board. But like definitely think like literally sometimes getting those big, like getting a big name to be like, oh yeah, come check this, because like honestly it can be those little things. It's sometimes it is just about how you brand it, like sometimes. But I think as well in this particular age, I think we're in kind of a golden age for it not being seen like that, just because we're all, well, right now we're all online and there's so many things starting up. So this is like the perfect time to start a ministry, and it's not necessarily going to be seen as an offshoot. Like people are looking for things, people are looking for young people to create and to start things. So I would say think strategically, think who you can get involved. Because I think with One Sound, one of the things we tried to do was try and be as like inclusive as possible. Like we weren't trying to just get a certain group of people. Like I know how it, well, that's a lie. I know how it is in the NEC, but I also know how it is in the SEC. And like in terms of like musicians, I think everywhere, there's wherever you are, there's always a cult. There can always be a culture of like, these are the chosen musicians, or these are the best ones, but we've just tried to X all that out and just have anybody. So I think as if you can be as broad as possible and work with as many sorts of people as possible, that will go a way to, I guess, your ministry not being seen as offshoot. If you're trying to work with, you know, different people. So like say if you start a small group, maybe get like a well-known speaker that you respect to come in and like do something. Or if it, like whatever it is, like maybe, you know, get someone who you respect, who you know, like people like to, because that can have a benefit of like almost co-signing your ministry, but also like getting people to come to what you're doing and to have eyeballs on it. So yeah.
This was a slight problem we had in Coventry actually when we first started, because I'd kind of been new to Coventry and then I'd gone to Peace and then came back and said, like, we didn't actually even talk to the church when thinking about starting our society. So I came back, got the students together. I'm like, hey guys, this is the idea. Are you on board? They're like, yeah. We're like, okay, let's start. So we started going through the process of setting up a society at the university. And I think we'd even sent in an application. And then I don't know if we mentioned it in passing at a prayer meeting or something. And then the pastor kind of pulled me aside and he's like, what's this I'm hearing about this thing that started in Coventry University? And I'm like, oh, we just started a society. And he's like, he was very like skeptical of it, and there were reports coming in. And so he kind of sat us down and kind of wanted to know more about the society and what we were doing. So initially I didn't think to mention it to the church because I thought, oh, we're just setting something up. We're all SDA, like should be no problem. But we had to kind of talk to him about it. He asked us what we're going to do, who was involved, and then we had to like bring a plan to the board and they had to kind of approve it and, you know, that kind of thing. And what I found was important in that process is that even though like it didn't fit within the current structure of the church, it wasn't like under the youth department or anything that we'd kind of been commissioned to do, it was still important to be to inform the church that we were doing this just for accountability purposes, which was what kind of the pastor had said. Thankfully they were in agreement. I don't know what would have happened if they didn't really like what we were doing. But like what Akil said, they were very interested to know who was going to be leading the Bible studies, what material we would be using, that kind of thing. And I think it is, in a sense, even though it can be frustrating, I can see why the church may have kind of this protection in a sense, because if we're saying we're Seventh-day Adventists, if we're starting to do things that are not representative of the church's beliefs, then that can bring disrepute kind of into society. So whilst you know, we don't have to necessarily let things stop us from doing what God is calling us to do, I think it's also important to be wise and responsible and do the best that we can to uphold kind of the church values, whilst still doing what, you know, God has kind of placed on our heart.
True.
Yeah, I would just, to riff off what you were saying, like, I think because I think within the church there has been histories of like people tucked off in offshoots and stuff. Like I've seen it happen as well. Like I do think that I can perfectly understand why the church would be like, okay, who's giving the Bible studies and like what's being taught. Like I think that's like important. I think that's one of the things that's actually critical for you as a ministry, to like be sure of what it is that you're teaching and what message that you're projecting. I think that's I guess that's also key to not being seen as an offshoot. Like I think it, like sometimes people, you know, might think you can overthink it, but it really is that important to be very intentional with every word that you say and the messages that are communicated by the people that are on your platform as part of your ministry. Because if they're saying things that are like unbiblical or, you know, fanatical, whatever it is, like that's going to have a negative impact. And it's sometimes very difficult to like change people's impression once they've had it. So do you think, like, you know, I would say overthink about, like, you know, being clear about this is what we want you to say, don't say this, like do say that. Like even when with like One Sound, we have a thing of like, we will give you like a form of like, these are the kind of things we want you to, this is how you want to present yourself, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff, because it's important like what you're portraying. So I think definitely be very intentional about, like, say if it's like a Bible study or something like that, like research what people are saying. Like, you know, if they're spreading 5G coronavirus theories, maybe don't have them because they might say that on your platform and then it'll be an issue for you in the future. Like be very like intentional about who you get on your platform and making sure that like what they're saying is in line with not just what the church is, but what God would have them say and like what's actually biblical, you know.
And I want to just appreciate that. I want to bounce up a point that Leon mentioned earlier and just bring it up again here. And I think, as he mentioned, when you're dealing with the church board, it's so important as a young person, just, you know, to maintain your respect and your whatever, you know, respect for the elders that are there, etc., even when they're asking questions that you may not think are intelligent or appropriate. And I think the same thing is true when you're starting something outside of church. When people ask, what are you doing, you know, whatever, rather than giving evasive or what would the word be, you know, just vague answers, but to, you know, not every question that's asked is from a power grab. Some of the questions are just curious, and give a respectful and honest answer and keep people in the loop. And you're much more likely to have them stay on board than if you're like, you know, trying to act as if you're, you know, starting a secret society or something.
Definitely.
Agreed.
Just a brief mention, this may apply to some of you in a church setting. You know, when you have a department in church, you get a budget, but, you know, not sometimes you don't get much of a budget. It's just a token, like, here's 30 quid for the year. Please minister to 50 young people, 52 weeks of the year. You know, like, you know, if you're starting a ministry, like, outside, you're not getting support. So how, just really quickly, maybe a couple of points on how have you managed finances in a church context where you haven't had enough finances, or an external context where, you know, you have none. I know you mentioned, one of you mentioned earlier, it just came from your own pockets, but any thoughts or quick points to share there?
I mean, the budgets are not huge in the church setting. I feel like if you're doing the will of God, God will make a way in it. God will make a way. And sometimes I even look at the figures. Sometimes, you know, I have to dip into my own pocket.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've got that money for this specific reason. Like, we're okay. We've had another event. Everyone's fed, and we're okay. On to the next. Also as well, listen, man, if you're doing the right thing, God sends people, you know, like, you know those people in church will slide you a cheeky £20.
Yeah.
You know, you get that's for your department. You think to yourself, whoa, and then you get £50. You think, whoa, people are supporting this thing.
Yeah.
Like, listen, guys, things happen, and like even like things like when you're doing things like retreats and whatnot, again, like parents will contribute, and the way is just made for you just to walk straight through, strong, confident, because God's got your back. Sometimes I think about money a bit too much, you know.
Yeah.
Everything that has been, God's probably wanted me to do, it's been provided just like that. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean that tough times won't come. It means that probably to pray a bit more.
Yeah, just to add, I remember there was a tagline at Peace that we had, which was, if it's God's will, it's God's bill. So like, you know, when we'd start at the beginning of the year, again, budgets are budgets, like, but you can't be looking at the budget going, oh, well, right, it's all over before it's like, you again, whether it be dipping in and we had something recently, we started something called a gospel music cafe. So it's in a local restaurant kind of cafe. It's got those acoustic vibes. And but again, to get to pay for it, like, so long story short, we paid for with our youth budget money for the first one. Obviously, it went really well. We had people from the community to come. Our youth were singing, and we had a few guests in the section when people can come in. What's that part called again? Akil?
What's this now?
Like the lobby area.
No. You know the part where you've got when people can just sing. Anyone can come in and sing.
Open mic.
Open mic. Why did my brain go blank? That's it. So we had open mic. Went well. Anyway, long story short, at the end of it, someone who's come has gone, how much did this venue cost you? Said the number. Don't worry. Next time you do your next one, which you said you're going to do in a few months' time, I'll pay for it.
Wow.
God's will, if it's something that God has inspired, and then you put your all into it, and then there's fruit from that, God will keep providing.
Yeah,
I think Leo made a point. We think sometimes too much about the money and as if, come on, like, this is God's work. God will provide, and like I said, sometimes it means we dip into our own. Sometimes others will just help. Sometimes it might be the TED have got a fund that they can support. SEC themselves might be willing, if it's maybe the youth department, you go and present the idea. I've had that happen a few times, had an idea, gone to the conference, they've supported, fundraise. There's many ways. Never let money be the issue.
Yeah,
I think it's important as well to remember one of my favorite Bible texts, where it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Because literally, when we lean on our own understanding, as we've all discussed and we've all talked about just now, you know, we don't understand where the money's going to come from. We don't understand how, like Leon was saying, you know, somebody might put something in your, like, how does it all just come together like this? But as long as we continue to trust in the Lord, and God will make a way. He will. If it's God's will, as you said, He'll make a way.
I think one thing I'd say as well is that do your research, man. Do research. Like, there may be grants that you can get, there may be funds that are available, like Chisha was saying, like there's stuff at the conference, and also the amount of stuff, like, you can just do things for free. This right here is free. I think, I don't know, okay, maybe not say that. There are things that you can do for free, so do, like, what you can do for free, do those things. Having people in your home, like, ostensibly, if you got the money to pay for your bills, is free. So you can do that. Like, think about all the things that you can do for free first, and like trust God for the rest. Like, I 100% agree with what everyone said about, like, trusting God, and if it's God's will, it's God's will. That's definitely true. But also, like, there's also the fact of there are things that you can do right now that are free. You don't always need money to do everything. Like, and think about ways that you can get around it. Like, there's a lot of power in, like, praying and brainstorming and, like, getting people in the room and just, like, getting your heads together and just coming up with creative ways. Like, money should definitely not, it can be a barrier to certain things, maybe, but it can't be a barrier for starting. No way. Like, fundraising, yeah, you can get around.
And also, I think, don't be afraid to ask. Like, some people just get afraid to ask, but you never know. Sometimes people are more willing than we sometimes know, and if we ask a little bit from here and there, then it all adds up. And I know someone who was just like, hey, I started this thing. Do you know what you should do? You should sponsor it. And I was like, and then I said how much, and then they mentioned it. I was like, do you know what? It's not gonna hurt. So I just ended up doing it. So sometimes you never know. And they probably did that with loads of other people, but when you put it together, it ends up being a lot that helps them in the long run. So yeah.
Well, sorry, can I say one more thing? Also as well, I would say that don't be too relaxed. There's things you can do to kind of get money. Usually initiatives. So like, for example, back in the day after AYS, the parties used to come out.
Yeah, man, the social time.
You see what I'm trying to say? The lilt and the gizzard, they used to come out to play. So what happened is that we went out this big hall in Lascelles, and like everything's going on socials and whatnot. And we just sold stuff and we made money. Just made money off simple things. And even the youth team now, they're doing the same thing. They're selling things and they're just putting it back into reserves, just ready for the rainy days. You know what I mean? Just get active. That's what I would say. Get active.
All right, guys. Appreciate you sharing. The last question I wanted to ask you is, and you don't all have to answer, may apply to some, if not all. What role or what role has structure and mentorship played in your ministry? Anyone want to share? Anyone have mentors or mentorship? Or
I would say structure is key. Like, I think sometimes, I guess because for what I'm doing, like One Sound Music is 100% ministry and it's 100% business. Like, it's both. So the structure is, if there's no, we have to do both. And I think if you're really doing God's business, you got to take it seriously. Like, there's, when you look at the Bible, if you look at in Acts, they had structure. They weren't just all living their life. Like in Acts 2, they like, if they were dividing up the money, how can they divide up the money if there was no structure in place for which to do it? So I think structure is like very important. Like, have someone who's taking the minutes, like have someone who's doing the admin, have someone who's doing the finance. Like, even if that's you, make sure you know that those are your roles and that's what you're doing. Like, this part of me is doing this part of me is doing this, and this part of me is doing this. Like, there's so many free tools, like Canva's free, Google Drive is free. You can organize your designs on there. Like, I've got my logo here, my brand is on Canva, all my documents. So I've got my Google Sheets, I've got for my finances, I've got my Google Docs for my notes for my minutes and stuff. Like, make sure you do research, like research all the tools out there that you can use, and then have that structure in place. And it also helps in terms of like, making sure that everyone knows what they're doing. So there's accountability of like, okay, this is this person's task, this is your task, this is your task. And again, even if that's you just know what your tasks you have to do are, but like, making sure that structure is in place. I also kind of, when you ask a question about mentorship, is actually quite interesting. I don't really like, I think we actually have started to see the value of mentorship more and have been trying to reach out for that. But I think as well, the other thing I'd say is that some of us were at the age where we should actually be mentoring people now, like mentoring the teenagers, like, because I know if like from when I was young, I didn't feel like I had like mentorship from like, not necessarily from older, but like from people in this age group, like 25, 30, 35, whatever, this age group, they weren't mentoring. And I feel like that's really important for us to actually be pouring back into people. Do not leave them to like try and figure it out by themselves. Actually like take an interest in their lives, like bring them up, phone them, and get them involved in your ministry, get them to start something or find out what they're passionate about and evoke that, like get that out of them. I think too long sometimes we've been in the stage that we're always needing someone to do something for us, and we're young people and we need something for us. Like, it's about time we just started doing things ourselves and then like mentoring the next generation.
Yeah, great point.
With Can We Just Talk, I mean, as I said, it is very brand new, but everyone that's involved, we've got such a strong team, and the team that's there, everyone's skill base is just amazing. So we've tapped into each person's skill. So you won't be able to do everything. Like Akil was saying, you didn't know how to do YouTube, and that was me as well. Like, you learn as you go. But if you've got the structure in place where you've got someone who's good at this bit and someone who's good at marketing and somebody who's good at, I don't know, typing, I don't know, whatever it is, use the skills that you have, and don't try and just do it all by yourself.
Oh yeah, sorry, delegation is like, so
yeah.
I'm not great at delegating. Like, we were doing this isolation fest, I was like, yeah guys, don't worry, I'll just do, and this, I could not have done it by myself. It's literally an impossible event to do by yourself. Like Tony and Tochi, like we all have to be working in tandem. So like, if you can delegate, like definitely delegate and trust people to do things. Like, sure.
Delegation's key. I think the hardest part of leadership is delegating to someone who does a job not as good as you, and you have to stand and watch them. And let them do it, because that's how they learn.
Yeah.
I was gonna add as well to what Akil said, in relation to, for example, ASC, but I think with any ministry, because even Real Talk, I know they have this as well, you need to have the structure so that the ministry can be sustainable. And I think sometimes people like to revolve their ministry around, oh, it's mine, and then have this attachment to it that limits its potential to go even further and to grow. So GYC is obviously a massive example. They have a structure so that even when the young people who started it are not really doing it anymore, it's still continuing and going forward. So I think that's a massive thing. So even when it comes to ASC, you want to make sure that, you know, whenever you're doing something, somebody else is helping you or doing it with you. So then when you're done or when you're through, somebody else can continue it. Even if it's something small, We'll Talk just have a little, I don't know if it's a little bit more to it, but I've seen the poster thing that says, what's the topic, what's that, and then how to conduct it on a sheet of paper. That can be passed on, and then somebody else can use that same thing to do the same thing. So I think we also want to make sure that when it comes to ministry, we're also thinking long term and how it can be sustainable.
That's a key point. Yeah, thank you guys for sharing. I think structure is important in ministry. I think will only grow as big as its structure allows. No matter what boost it may get at the beginning, ultimately the structure that's set will allow it to grow. And I appreciate the points on mentorship, whether you've had a mentor and I think Akil's point's great that, you know, no matter what age you are, you should always be looking into mentoring someone else, the next generation that's coming up, and that's key. Thank you guys for sharing with us this evening. We've come to the end of our time together, but I think the experience that you've shared and the advice and tips and things have been very on point and will help other people who are watching out to navigate their ministry. And I think these are interesting times we're living in. We don't know what the new normal is going to look like when church comes back. And I've been encouraged by the creativity I've seen during lockdown, you know, because we're not as busy with our local church maybe as before, or we don't go to the four walls that we traditionally go to. And whereas before we may have been reliant on certain things to happen, now people are just, you know, you're seeing things start and creativity in place, and I hope that this creativity and initiative continues and people look for ways to get things done.
Can I just add something as well? When I first saw this title, I didn't think it was about starting stuff, and I'm glad I didn't. It's like I probably wouldn't have come on here. I actually thought it was talking about taking initiative in already existing things. Like just do it, don't be afraid to just take part and get involved. So I think for those who maybe don't want to start something new or don't have, not that everybody has ideas, but maybe they don't want to be a startup ministry, just ask anything that you're passionate about if you can get involved in it, and just do it. If you think I'm really good at making canvas, just get yourself doing it and just say, here's what I can do, do you need help in that? If you're good at presenting, just say, this is what I'm good at, can I get involved in that? So I think if you're watching this and you're thinking, oh, I don't want to start a ministry, there's still loads of ways you can get involved. Yeah.
I was just going to say, quick plug, since you just said that, like, we need like social media people, admin. So if you're like, I don't have ministries to be part of One Time Music, we need loads of people, trust me.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, there's no shame in plugging it. I know when you asked the question at the beginning about lineage, and when it started, it was me and Clive, and that was it. And then Clive asked Ashley, come take pictures. And then he asked Anton, come do sound. And they just came and, volunteered and came. And then there was a girl from, I don't know if any of you have been to the Lineage website. There's just a plethora of blogs and articles and information all on there. It's all written by this girl in Australia called Suki. And Naomi, I think you know her from your time down there. She just wrote me an email and said, can I do any help for you? And I was like, oh, sure. Do you want to write an article? So she wrote an article and I was like, that's a pretty good article. I said, do you want to write another one? And then from there, she just took over the whole website. So, and we weren't in the same country, weren't in the same church. And she just wrote me out the blue and said, can I help out your ministry? So, like you say, Naomi, like, you may not want to start something, but you see something starting, you want to help out. Don't be afraid to ask. And if someone says no, then fine, maybe that wasn't for you, and move on, and the Lord will open another door. I just wanted to share that to bounce off what you said. Leon, do you mind closing with prayer for us?
Of course. Lord God, our Father and our King, we just want to give you thanks and praise for being with us during this real talk conversation. We understand that we are young, and we understand that we are energetic and powerful. I ask you if you just allow us to channel that energy and the wisdom and the knowledge to do your will and your will only. If any of us are lacking confidence, Lord, give us your confidence. If any of us are lacking knowledge, Lord, please enlighten us. I ask if you'll allow also the Spirit to take control of all of our ideas and help us to reach out to those, also to those that are in the church currently. So ask if you'll empower us, Lord, now, and give us increased energy to build on the ideas that we have, or to start something, or just to get involved. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, thank you, guys. Say bye to our live audience.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you taking the time. And for those of you who tuned in, God bless you. And we look to see you our next live. Tomorrow night, we have a Zoom session on hand, don't know what the
Sewing.
It's on sewing and how to creatively sew during lockdown. On Wednesday, it's off. Thursday is the book club. We've got a new book starting this week. And Friday night, we're back for a live stream Bible study with a panel on Friday. So hope to see you guys in another form or fashion later on this week. And God bless.